though. I didn't like the
Yeah.
motherfucker. Period. I didn't like him because I wasn't into that kind of shit at that time. I liked slow jams. I liked Through the Wire. Just as good songs. I just wasn't into that type of shit at that time.
Right.
2004. They wasn't talking about some New York shooting somebody shit. I wasn't into it.
Yeah,
Just me being ignorant. But
yeah, he broke in with that backpacker shit.
yep, him, Lupe, Common.
But when you look at Kirk Franklin though, it's like Vari said, you're looking through the 2020 lens. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I always felt that way about that motherfucker.
No, I mean in the sense of what actually took place, like the conversation he had
Oh
with his
yeah.
son. Cause like nigga, all growing up, my my pops was like, "You think you could beat me, nigga? All right, let's step outside." You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? So, but now they just kind of blowing that shit up because it's you know it's
I
different.
think it's worse for him though because if you're he's not a preacher per se, but he's a peddler of the
Jesus.
word. You know what I'm saying? So you're not supposed to be on that. Like I know plenty of people from the street that turn to the cloth that make it their business not to get like that. So it's like he gotta eat that because you sitting here doing all of this high praise. They playing his stuff in church. Like how
Mhm.
people gonna look at you like that? I mean, granted, now he could spin it, and we all fall short. He about to come
That
out with another album.
that's the exact point I was gonna make is that because people who are religious, anytime they fall short, they fall back on, well, we're all sinners, God forgives, he without sin throw the first stone and all that kind
Hmm.
of shit. And and it's just one of those things of, you know, it's okay that I fucked up because I could just always ask for forgiveness. You know what I mean? And that's why I just think that the whole concept is just, to use a Bidenism, to use a Bidenism, a lot of malarkey.
Yeah, man. Yes, yes. So it's the Castworthy podcast. We are here. It is daylight savings. They don't even know what day it is. March 14th. I am Big Steve, aka Last of a Dying Breed, on the Twitter machine, joined today by EJ the Savage and the VP of a little bit of research lately. And yeah, man. So I think what people mix up sometimes when we were talking about was Kirk Franklin spazzing out on his son and the religious part aspect of it, and and you have I think people mix up faith, right? So you can have faith and not be religious. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so when you're talking, Vari, what you were talking about is people, peddling and pushing the word and stuff. And then EJ, you were talking about pushing the word and stuff like that. But so two different things to me. Like I understand people that can have faith and be spiritual, but not be, full out religious and kind of caught up in religion. You know?
Yeah, I mean, those are people who consider themselves kind of, I guess, agnostic, where they say, I believe in like a higher entity. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I'm not necessarily religious, where I'm, Catholic or Jewish or whatever. You know what I mean? So those things exist, and then you have some people who are just outright atheists who say, there is no higher being or whatever. And those folks are actually, when you look at polling and things like that, those folks are actually becoming a larger and larger part of the population. People who actually have no religious belief at all. Um,
Yeah.
so
So
we'll
isn't
see.
atheism the absence of religion and spirituality, or is it just religion?
Yeah, atheist people don't believe in like anything in regards to any higher beings or entity or any kind of what do you call it, I can't think of the term, like like inspired design or whatever that term is, like saying like God created everything and set all this stuff in motion to happen, or what, they don't believe in any of that stuff. It's just, everything is happening because of the things that we learn, like in science or whatever. This
Yeah.
happened, that happened, boom, you have people here.
Yeah. Yep.
And in my own belief is that I always feel like religion was a means of control, you know, because why do I get to be the king of this land and subjugate everybody and tell them what to do? It's because it's divine. God made it for me to rule this land, so that's why you guys have to listen to me. And they say, oh, okay, or back when you go back even further, how come the wind blows, or how come there's waves, how come there's hurricanes or whatever? Oh, it's because God, he's cleansing things, and that kind of thing like that, so
Yeah.
that's always kind of been my point of view of it. I mean, people, if you look at Catholicism as an example, and in Catholics are, that's like my favorite religion, because they're just a bunch of fucking gangsters, like.
I bet. I bet.
And I mean, you look at
Did
back
you
in the day,
when
like
you
in
were
the 10th century, like back, if you go back like that far, like the Catholics literally had armies. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The Crusades and all that shit. Pope Leo, I think it was like Pope Leo the 10th was like out there leading wars and shit like that. You know what I mean? How can those things coexist where you're preaching a gospel that talks about killing as being a sin, and you're the head of an army?
Yeah.
Like it don't make sense to me, but it is what it is.
Was it back in the day when you were a little boy that you became a fan of Catholicism?
Oh my god. Oh
Wow.
What? What? People learn religion early in their life. Yeah, I
no.
mean, shit. I was in the church when I was younger and shit. Altar boy and everything. But you grow, and I think it's good to create some structure, some structure in kids.
Yeah.
In their life when they're young. But I think as you get older, you grow and you make your own decision. You make your own determination as to what you feel took place, how we got here. To your point, atheists believe in science, right? And I guess it's hard to say to what extent you want to push your kids, and that's what I think. When we were talking in pre-recording, we were talking about Kirk Franklin and his son, and I think about what could cause them to have that disconnect, right? And I'm thinking maybe it's because it's some, who knows, he might be out in the streets, or he may just not be as interested in church and spiritual stuff as Kirk Franklin is, or appears to be.
Oh, we did the research. Well, I started to do the research rather. Um, Kirk Franklin had him at 18, and he dropped that first album like at 28. So the kid was like 10. So he was raised in the midst of all of this fame and stardom and fortune. And unfortunately, we see the path, or the pattern when you have these famous celebrities, nonetheless famous fathers, and their kids, and you putting in that time touring and making music, etc. You're gonna fall short somewhere. And the logic is, well, I'm out here doing my thing, and I'm providing. So, there's probably a lot of lack of relationship there. And then, a lot of it was probably compensated with money and just excusing. And because we were saying the way that he's talking to this dude is 33 years old. the way he's talking to this dude is like you would thought he was 18 still. So he probably didn't have these joints, when he was 28. Then, another 8 years, he's dropping another set of albums, and this kid is probably just doing whatever he wants to do. So now, this is the monster he's created. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of why I understand how 50 took the approach he did with his first son. Now you got a guy that's not gonna hide or doesn't have to hide how he's really gonna be. And he told his oldest son, like, you know what, F you. Like, I done took care of you and your moms who been nothing but a headache to me in my, entire life. So he's like, I'm done with you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, that life is crazy. So you quoted a Joeism, right?
Yeah, man.
A Bidenism.
It's a lot of malarkey.
A lot of malarkey. We've been hearing a lot about Joe. People, I think Joe's numbers is going up. Them stimmies is coming. What y'all got planned for your stimulus, man? What y'all buying? You gonna invest it? It's just unplanned money. Like, we're lucky. We talk about it all the time. We're lucky. We've all been, needed and necessary throughout this pandemic. We've been able to continue functioning from a financial standpoint due to the work that we do. So it's not like we're pressed for it. It's not like we're looking at something and saying, damn, thank goodness this 1400 came because I got something to do with it. Or, in certain cases, for some people, a lot more than 1400. But you guys got anything specific planned for your stimmies?
Nah, I think that that you're exactly right, Steve. That we're fortunate in the sense of throughout the pandemic, we were able to continue to work. For me, and I know you're still kind of on the journey. I talked about on the podcast about when I became debt free. Um, so I'm not pressed for it. So it's savings for us. But I know that there are some people out there who probably believe that the government shouldn't be sending out money. People don't need it. That kind of thing like that. But for the vast majority of people that this program was designed for, it's going to have the intended effect, because these people are going to get that money and they're going to spend it right away. So it's going to have the designed effect in the economy that was intended. But for people like us, and I would say, we're probably in the vast minority of people who qualify for the money but don't really like technically need it and are able to save it, and so that's basically our plan is just to save.
You and I are saving. We know what EJ about to do. He about to get real fucking ignorant. He has no responsibility. How much?
Yo, let me just say this real quick
I'm the
to
one. I'm the one with
anybody.
the most kids, but I have no responsibility.
Let me say this real quick
No, I
to
don't mean that kind of
anybody.
responsibility. I mean your level of responsibility through the pandemic.
It's even
Anybody.
worse because I'm the only one. I'm in the single household. Like where y'all had the two incomes, I only got the one. So where I could, like I was telling y'all before, there's been some offers. I've been considering a roommate. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I could save a whole lot more. You know what I mean? But
Careful. Roommates tent. Never mind. How many times does $40 go into 1400? Because that's how many little things EJ gonna have at his house.
Mm-hmm.
$40.
Yo, if you own a bar, if you own a bar in the greater Baltimore area, if you own a bar in the greater Baltimore area, I would say you need to call your wing supplier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they the city is open back up. Like I told y'all before, watching the politics. this dude just shut stuff down. Nothing changed. Nothing happened. And now it's even more controversy in the sense that they have on-duty officers running some of these these COVID task force, when, the liquor board and the health department, I would say the liquor board without the health department is extremely capable of managing that situation. So that's another bit of controversy. Violence has started back up. School systems messed up, but nevertheless, the bars are up and running again. People are working. They're happy. So I think, because this is not a town like many others where the restaurant industry, like New York, New York is weird because there's so many places. I don't know that the restaurant industry was ever that great to begin with, because I think that's a lofty idea because there's so many different places. But this place, I mean, if you take away the restaurants, there's
Oh, it
nothing here.
thrives. Baltimore
Yeah,
thrives on. Yeah, it's on.
there's nothing here
Yeah,
other than the restaurants, and you got some things, but this place is like a real restaurant place, and I don't think people really realize that. But for him to be the mayor who's been in city council for the last 10 years, that, and that hurt a lot of people. It hurt a lot of people.
I think that kind of what you're describing is probably every town or city has like the thing that makes everything else work. And so, like, you're describing it as the restaurant industry for Baltimore. Here in Central Florida, where me and Steve are, is tourism. So like, if Disney decided, you know what, we're shutting down Orlando, we're moving the shit to Atlanta, like, this entire region in the state of Florida would probably collapse because most of it is built around
Tourism.
tourism. Or if you look at smaller towns, like when I was still in the military, you have a lot of towns that function because there's a base there. And whenever you have the Pentagon who do these base closings from time to time, the base goes away and that town collapses because most military installations are in small towns to begin with. And so everything that's in the town, whether it's restaurants, car dealerships, grocery stores, whatever, yeah, they support the people who live in that town, but really they're there to provide, because the base can, all that stuff they have out in town, we have it on base. We don't have to go out in town to go to the grocery store. You know what I mean? Yeah. We can shop on base and shop tax-free on base. So it's better for us to shop on base to begin with. You know what I mean? So those things are really there to support the people who live in town, who support the things happening on base. So, you remove something like that from a local economy, and you start seeing things really go in the shitter. And that's something that COVID showed us, on how dependent your local economies are on everything within that economy.
Yeah. How many years you guys think we are away from people, especially with the vaccine and stuff, people saying, being out about and saying, remember when we had to wear masks to do this? Like, how long do you think it takes before we get back to no mask life?
6 months.
6 months? Like, you think everybody, or you think just the irresponsibles?
The majority. I don't even think we'll be able to measure it in years. It's going to be months, because I think that part of the problem is that when we have issues like this, we try to solve the problem and then we move on. Nobody looks at what caused the problem and what we can do in the future to avoid this kind of thing happening again, right? And right. So, like, if you look at something like COVID, how it's an airborne disease, right? Once things got back to normal, for me personally, a change I would like to see is maybe having servers in restaurants actually wear masks, right? Mm-hmm. And that could help the restaurant industry to, if something were to happen in the future, to slow the spread, but people are going to just go back to normal like nothing happened and just keep it moving. And we'll look back at COVID like the same way we look back at pictures from 2019, where I don't know if you guys remember, I put that picture in the chat when it said it showed, or it might not have been me, it might have been somebody else, but whatever. There's a picture in our chat where it shows somebody blowing out candles, and it was like, yo, like people blowing their germs all over a cake before we eat it. we were crazy back then,
Yeah.
and we're gonna go right back to that shit.
There's a lot of merit to that because historically this country and this world, going back to the flu outbreaks, the bubonic plague, and all of those different things. The idea overall is going to be that we as a people have to rise, right? We have to overcome. We have to get past it, or else what could happen. I don't know. I don't know that I agree with BP that the majority is going to be maskless. I mean, you already have states moving towards that as is. You already have people basically saying, "I'm going to take the risk as is." So I think people, of course, that are higher risk are going to be a little bit more cautious as they were just in other areas and other things. So I'd say maybe a year you might see it completely to where we feel comfortable not having the mask again. But I don't know, man. My biggest thing, as it's always been, is what are we going to do for the next thing? You know,
Mhm.
um, because we're at an age where um, typically people our age and in reasonable health can get through this, but it's not those people that are generally concerned. It's the others, and I don't know. I don't know how, and if we don't have, if we have another situation where this nation and others are not prepared, I'm just worried for the next one. You know,
Yeah.
And Steve, before you jump in, let me answer your question this way, right? Think about when we talk about climate change, right? And you see people talking about, going to Mars and colonizing Mars. So we fucked this planet up, and it's like, let's go to another one. Nobody's saying, let's try to fix the problems here on Earth where we already have things like air. They're saying, let's try to move to another planet. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I think when you look at something like a COVID and the things that helped it happen and helped it spread, people aren't going to take stock and say, let's do an after action report and look at what happened, what went right, what went wrong, what caused this thing to become a global pandemic, and let's try to resolve some of those issues. They're going to just keep it moving.
Yeah, and when you talk about previous stuff, the EJ, you talk about bubonic plague. You think about, and then you think about stuff that's probably not as major. Something as simple as like bird flu, swine flu, mad cows, shit like that. That was just recent, small stuff, and people just kind of got past it, right? With mosquitoes, passing shit, and people like oh, I'm scared of mosquitoes, and then they're good to go, And then you had the people here in Florida on the West Coast that were getting whatever that flesh eating shit was out of the water, a couple years ago. And within months, people completely forgot tourism was back to where it needed to be, and no one's even talking about it. So I think you guys have a point. I think it'll be quicker than normal. And but we can hope, right, that there's responsibility behind it in people in those decision making areas to where or roles to where like VP said, waitresses, waiters, fucking bartenders, individuals that might be, when you are traveling on a plane in close quarters and on trains and buses, public transportation, there might still be those types of mandates. Maybe not so much when you're walking down the street, going into Costco, going into 7-Eleven, but when you're in those close quarters on buses and shit like that, they got to they have to make that shit, you know, necessary. And will they? Probably not, but we got to hope for it.
it always worries me though because the driving nature of this world of this nation specifically has that problem to where that if it doesn't hit them
Yep.
first, it isn't a major issue. And
Yeah.
we see
I
that
was.
in Congress, and we see that with the way we got here. We see that when it comes to gun violence. We see that when it comes to drugs. So
And then with this, you got another layer where people are fucking selfish. You know what I mean? So I know some people that have had COVID, right? Um, and they're they are they're against the Democratic Party. You know, they were supporters and stuff, right? Or they're just lost, right? Lost Bridgeport people, and they had COVID, and so they're like, well, I'm not getting the vaccine. You know what I'm saying? Because they feel like, fuck it, I can't get it again, right? And reality is, we don't know if that's true, right? And maybe your antibodies break down, and then you do have it again, and then you're putting your kids at risk again, or your family, or friends, or elders. um, so it's just, I think people just got to make some responsible decisions, man. And we as humans, we got to move forward. And to your point, EJ, we got to stop being so selfish. I say it all the time with gun violence, right? We're avid supporters of gun ownership, EJ and I. But we also understand the severity behind mass shootings. We understand the severity behind, the need for additional background checks. The ongoing mental health checks, the limitation of, assault rifles and stuff like that, right? So we get that. And we always say, when there is something that happens, these people that make these rules, Congress and senators and stuff like that, they're voted in, and the people that are voting them in, maybe they need to be impacted by something like that. It's a sad thing to say, but I've always said it. If a mass shooting happens around election day, we might see some different outcomes.
You know,
Unfortunately.
it's funny that you guys mentioned like things like selfishness and that kind of thing like that, because that's actually something that's been coming up in the political world when it comes to the vaccine. People in other countries, and some people in our own country, have been saying the US is getting too much of the vaccines, and because of orders that were made in the Trump administration, and then the orders that the Biden administration have made, the US has ordered enough vaccine to vaccinate every American twice. So and so you have some people who are saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with this, that we should start sharing our supply with other countries, and we actually already do that through a program called COVAX. But they're saying that we should do more, because this pandemic is not only happening in the United States; it's happening across the world. And something like, as we've already seen, given the last year that we had, borders can't protect us.
Hmm.
Because all somebody has to do is come in, cough, and then boom, the thing spreads. And so they're making the point that we should start sharing these things with poorer countries to make sure that everybody on the globe is getting vaccinated, so we can defeat this pandemic and not necessarily just worry about defeating it in the US, because it can come right back raging.
Yeah, I ever saw that movie, The Day After Tomorrow,
Yeah.
where the climate and everything is starting to get to us, and they start sending people south, and Mexico was like, nah.
Yeah.
Mexico was like, nah. It is. We all live here together, and that's something that the powers of be that be. This is just an ongoing thing that's been centuries old. The having power, the military aspect, the live let live, capitalism versus whatever else you believe. And yeah, at some point, like I always say, we're a human race, but we know, because there are a population of people, a populace of people all around the world that believe others are less human than the other. That's what happens.
But amongst just inside our country, we have the haves and have nots, right? Shit, we can't get somebody like Jeff Bezos to help, cure, and not just Jeff Bezos. You got the Elon Musks of the world. You got all of these people, right? And they have enough money to make it to where we wouldn't have panhandler after panhandler on the street, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of those people choose that life. They're drug addicts and stuff like that, and they're gonna be like that either way. But some of the individuals in that situation, especially now after this pandemic and the impact that it has had, you know, could definitely benefit from some help, trying to get out of that. And we have these individuals like a Jeff Bezos and an Elon Musk who are never gonna spend that money. Generations and generations to come from their families will never spend that money, right? And we're not making use of the funding that is there to benefit. So why would we expect anything different from our government, right? We are the haves. The United States are the haves, and those other small countries you speak of, VP, are the have-nots.
Even the
Right.
ones in our own, even the ones that fall within our own territorial
Right.
or jurisdictional reach.
Right.
We
And we're
got
putting
Puerto
our
Rico.
military. Yeah, we're putting our military in some of these places, right? So we're putting people that are Americans in these areas, to be uh available and subject to getting the virus from these people, from individuals who are not vaccinated. So we just gotta make better decisions.
Nah, and you have a great point, Steve. Scott Galloway was on Bill Maher on Friday, and he was actually talking about those two very individuals, Bezos and Elon
Musk.
Musk. And he talked about like how with this pandemic, these people are making crazy amounts of money. We talked about on this podcast when Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott divorced, and she got something like 34 35 billion dollars. When the pandemic hit in March, Jeff Bezos made back that 35 billion dollars in a month. In
Yeah.
1 month, he got it all back. You know what I mean? And over the course of this pandemic, Elon Musk's fortunes have gone up something to the tune of like $100 billion. I mean, he literally went from being on the lower end of the U.S. billionaires list to being like in the top five because of how much money that he's made over the last year. And right before tax season comes along, he packs up and moves to Texas, where you don't have to pay state income tax, right? And so people who make these crazy amounts of money do everything they can to hoard it. And I get it. You had an idea, you made money off of it, and so you want to try to keep as much money as possible and that kind of thing. But to Steve's point, these people aren't going to be able to, him, his family, and his family's family, and their heirs, they're never going to be able to spend all of this money that has been generated. But this system that we have in this country, they help make the roads that deliver the product, and they train the workers in our public schools and universities who went to work from him, who made these inventions that they came up with be able to be as good as they are, so that way you can make these hundreds of billions of dollars, and then they say, okay, I got this money and I can't give any of it back now to help future people in this country. And that part is super fucked up. We always see these stories of, oh, look at this billionaire or this rich person. Like, you look at LeBron started this school in Akron, right? The I Promise school, and it's helping these kids in Akron, right? And my argument to that is, kudos to LeBron for doing that, and anybody else who do those types of things, right? But my thing is what if there was an organization that was in this country that collected money from all people, and then they used that money to put it back into the system to help all people, right? And that system exists. It's the IRS. It's the tax system.
I
But
was gonna
we've
say,
said,
isn't that the government?
but we've said no. We shouldn't pay taxes. Taxes should be as low as possible, and then all the services that the country provides end up being shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you keep talking this way, again, you got to remember there was a point in time in this nation where if you talk this way, they were going to jail you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this
Communists.
is, yeah, you're communists, and we've been at war with these communist entities and nations for years. Silent wars, the nonsense. I mean, the money on defense, the just everything, and then then not to mention the problem our governments have created in our urban neighborhoods with the influx of drugs and the wars and the violence. I mean, we really are a savage people. We really
And
are
let
savage people.
But
and
you know
let's
what?
not.
Also, EJ. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
I would say let's not get it fucked up. There's 50 people that allegedly have similar views to us, right? But those 50 people, they not willing to give up what they got. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the problem is.
Yeah, and and to EJ's point about how if you talk like that, back in the day, you were considered like a socialist or a communist and that kind of thing like that, right? And people talk about capitalism is the way and all that kind of thing like that, right? I'm a capitalist. I believe in capitalism, right? But we don't have capitalism in this country. We have crony capitalism, right? And you think about Biden signs that $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. In that month, in that bill, in that $1.9 trillion, there's billions of dollars that are set aside for the airline industry because they've been hurting. American Airlines sent out to 13,000 employees the day before or the day that he signed the bill saying, hey, those furlough letters you got saying that you're getting ready to be laid off, tear them up. It's all good now. That's not capitalism. Capitalism says, hey, American Airlines, when Trump passed that tax bill in 2017 and you guys got your taxes cut and then you start buying back your own stock to make your stock price go up so that way your CEO could get all these bonuses and shit like that or whatever, and you guys were living high on the hog and you didn't save any money for the future, for your rainy day fund, now it's fucking raining and you're getting wet. Fuck you. Next business, step up, because there's another company that will come in and fill the breach, right? But in our country, we've said no. American Airlines or whatever other business, whether it was the auto industry in '09 during the '09 crash, the government has come in and said these businesses are too important and they're too big to fail. Remember that term? They're too big to fail. And so instead of saying we'll let Ford or American Airlines or whoever fail, and then somebody else will come in and do it better to fill that breach, the government continuously rescues these companies or whatever. And then so don't feed me the whole capitalism shit, because we don't have capitalism in this country.
Yeah. What's one thing that you guys are? What's the one thing? Give me one thing that you guys are looking forward to getting back to normal. Once we get to a highly vaccinated state in the country.
For me,
Schools.
man, it's
EJ like whatever it takes not to have to be a dad.
Nah, I think
or oh, I know why. He want them teachers back. He want them parent teacher conferences back.
Dropping your kids off does hit a little different. And you get to say, hey, Miss Williams.
I think EJ is 100% right with schools, man. I've talked to Steve about it offline. Like, my son has really struggled with this virtual learning, man. And I watch a lot of news, and I've seen them saying, like, people are starting to talk. Should we make summer school this year be mandatory to try to get these kids back on track? Should they put a program in place that allows parents to voluntarily hold their kids back? So, if your kid's in third grade, do you say let them do third grade again because they didn't get it right? And I've seen all these kind of ideas talked about. I don't know what the answer is or what the answer will be. But this virtual learning, man, this shit is terrible. And it puts a toll on the parents too, because if you got a 6-year-old, I have a friend of mine who listens to this podcast. Her son his son started kindergarten this year, or first grade. Either
First
kindergarten,
grade.
first grade. I think it's
First
first
grade
grade.
at 6.
And he's doing virtual learning, and so I mean, you think about, it's easy like now as adults to kind of look past that, but at those that's fundamental for kids. You build a house, it needs a foundation. That shit, the ABCs, 1 2 3, the stuff that you learning in kindergarten for is so foundational. And to be doing it online, man, we're gonna have a generation of kids who are fucked. And so I think schools opening back up is it's hugely important, man. For myself personally, I would say one thing I am looking forward to is the cruising industry. With my disability, I don't go out a lot, and I look very much forward to when we take our little family cruise in the summer. And I haven't done it in the last 2 years. And for some people in our group who go, for them it might just be, oh, we're having a vacation. But for me, that shit is like everything, because you guys know I don't really get out a lot, and so that shit hit hard not going on that cruise the last 2 years. Or last year we've already canceled the one that we were gonna do for 2021 as well.
I'm gonna let Steve say his piece, but I'm gonna get back to the virtual learning part.
Yeah, I think you guys have a point. The schooling is definitely important. I can imagine kids that are a little bit older that are in that extreme critical part of their lives, to retain this stuff, right? My son is 3, and he's going through, speech therapies and stuff like that, virtually. And it's a challenge at 3, obviously, because he can't, he's not going to stay 100% focused on a computer or an iPad, to look at somebody speaking to him, right? Where, you don't have that same impact as if you're in person and you can, the person is holding the blocks and showing him, right? And then on the flip side of it, you know, again, we're also lucky enough to where we don't have to, we don't have to put him in, we've never had to put him into daycare. And then even through the pandemic, even though it was an option, hell no, right? Wasn't happening. So he hasn't had that interaction with kids at 3. So I can imagine other people, other parents that are in that same type of boat that have children that are young ages at, in this pivotal range for them to um get that foundation of what they're going to be, right? And so at 5, 6, 7, those first graders that might be doing homeschooling, and second graders and third graders, man, this is an important time. So yeah, I think schooling is big. That's one piece. Personal for me is going to be just like the movies, though. Like, I need to get back into the fucking movies. I like watching this shit at home. I love having it, and the convenience of being able to just look at HBO Max or whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, man, I missed the whole just going into the movies, grabbing the popcorn and kind of just chilling. And obviously travel. Travel's the big piece, like VP said, cruising. And I need a beach like ASAP, not no Florida beach.
And real quick, EJ, to Steve's point, my friend who I was talking about, her son does speech therapy as well, and she's having issues with that. She sends an email, and it takes like 2 weeks for somebody to get back to her. But because everybody's virtual, it's not like, normally, pre-COVID, you're trying to get with the school to get some shit for your kid, right? You go up to the school and put your foot in somebody's ass. You know what I mean? Everybody's virtual now, so you can't, so you're firing off emails and just waiting to be responded to, and that shit's just sitting in some inbox somewhere or whatever, So that shit, man, these I feel so bad for these kids, man, with what's happening. And it's one of those things, like when we talked about earlier about, once things go back to normal, how long does it take, that kind of thing like that. Is this going to be one of those things that we look at to say, if something like this happens in the future, how do we make sure our kids can learn through the computer, but actually learn to where they're not giving up time? Because we gotta, this shit COVID came out of nowhere or whatever, but we gotta do better, because what's happening now fucking sucks.
I think the biggest thing, I think the older kids can still flourish from it, as I see the 3 different levels that I have, from the 12 to the 10 to the 6-year-old. The 12-year-old is very self-sufficient, very functional. Only problem is, whereas when you were in school and you were looking at your phone and you were able to get checked, if I'm not paying attention, and it's almost like a third sense that I have, that I just pop in and I'm just watching her, like, get off your phone. Other than that, she thrives. The middle one, because she's the very studious one, like, she won't leave the computer. She's just locked in. The 6-year-old, because of her personality, she wants to get up. She wants to move around. It's not even an attention thing. She just feel like, I got other stuff to do. And it's just like, yeah, but not even in the 6-year-old sense. It's just like,
See what you're
she'll
saying?
just be like, yo, I'm kind of hungry, I'm kind of thirsty. She'll be like, yo, I get back to that shit. Like, I gotta prioritize. Like, I can't do nothing if I'm hungry, dog. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or many times, she'll ask her sisters for help if I'm working or doing something. And what I've had to do sometimes is refocus her, sit her down next to me to hear what they're saying. And what I realize is that teachers haven't been trained to do this.
Right.
Instructional learning has always been classroom in your face focus. And what I realized too, and I mean, not to get on them, but I think the younger they are, it's harder for them to realize and remember that you're giving these assignments to these kids where you used to be able to walk around, look over their shoulder, actually help them write it out and
Yes.
go through it. And you're telling them, well, do page and do this and do that. And these handouts are not even, while they're now virtually on a tablet where you can do your finger, these things are not even practical in what they're doing. And what I feel bad about is that there are a lot of parents that they're making their way to be there, but then there are the grandparents that are trying to operate the tablets, they're trying to operate the system, they're trying to figure out how to do this. And while kids are still technically savvy and they can do it, this is a big task. And it's like, if I wasn't here, you be in the classroom. So the work should translate to whereas you're still kind of in the classroom, but because it's virtual, because all of this stuff wasn't built for this stuff, it's not that way. So what I employ anybody with a first grader to do. I don't know how it is down there, but our administration, the principals and stuff like that, they are still in the schools. You know, get up there, knock on some doors, voice your concerns, and then put in some extra time if possible. What I'll do, I'll sit, my youngest down and make her watch something on TV that helps with the reading and the counting and, just something additional. And I'll sit down with her and I'll work stuff out. But it is a major struggle at that age. And then, you talked about the social aspect, VP.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I think that depending on your child and the stage they are socially, because you could just have a child that wasn't very social at a certain point up until this point, that this is the time that they're actually looking for the social interaction when they didn't before. And I've seen that with a couple of other young men and other people that I know. And I had the benefit of having three kids where they keep themselves kind of socially engaged with one another, and they have cousins and my frat brother's kids that I bring them around. So yeah, man, it's I would say that's the one thing that I would need to go back to normal.
Yeah.
And a big piece of that, what
Oh,
you
and
said,
strip clubs,
EJ.
strip clubs.
Well, yeah, of course. A big piece of that, EJ, is it's not just the grandparents. Some of these parents are just dumb. Like, you got to remember there are dumb people in this world, right? And
Tons.
and when I say dumb, I don't mean it in a way to make them feel bad, but they're just that's not what they're into. They're not into technology, right? You have people that went to a technical school that might be mechanics, that might be they might be chefs, they might be in all types of other stuff, right? And technology might not be their thing, and they're struggling with it with their kids, trying to get them through the virtual schooling. And attention factor, right, for teachers has got to be difficult too, with the way social media is nowadays. So it's not just the kids that are struggling with focus, it's got to be the teachers as well.
Yeah.
Nah, that's a good point, Steve. And it reminds me of I remember shortly after I got out of the military, I went for a job, and I had to go take a test or whatever. And it's a bunch of us in a room, and we sit down at the computer or whatever. And to start the computer up, you got to hit the Alt Control Delete, right? And so everybody already hit Alt Control Delete. We're going, and the guy sitting next to me is like, hey, how do I open this up or whatever? And I was like, oh, you got to press. And then they walked them out right there, because they're like, you don't even know how to turn on the computer. Like, you can't work
Mm-hmm.
here. You know what I mean? And so, people like that have children. You have some people who are poor who maybe don't even have a computer at home. And now the school sends the computer home, but you don't know how to operate it. Your kid don't know how to operate it and you don't. And so, so even like little things like that could have these people uh really struggling, man, and because the parents may not know a lot, they may not be tech savvy, and then the kid obviously doesn't know at this point yet, and then you also got people who live in more rural areas who may not have good internet access, and
Yeah.
so like this whole thing, man, this I think that once we get back to normal, I think that people who work in education, whether it's the local, state, or federal level, are really going to have to come together and try to figure out a plan of attack for if anything like this ever happened in the future. How do we ensure our kids can learn properly and be able to thrive, because this shit is terrible right now, man.
Yeah, I mean, and we had the worst administration we could have in the worst time.
Oh,
I mean, if any time for President Obama and Archie to be in office, I mean, goddamn, sheesh. So, but again, it's just, that's another thing for me too, where all it all comes full circle, right? Where it's just like it's so many moving parts, and so many factors, and it's just tough to stay in the moment of things. And that's why I kind of understand and I get why people want to press forward and live normally, because there's so many things that if you stay into it, it can literally drive you crazy. Not saying ignore the reality of life, but some people just have to approach things differently, especially those that are younger than us. Like you were saying, we were talking about, the depression in younger people, but the people in their 20s, and I totally get it. I totally get it. Where we're able to sit down and be like, dog, I'm 30 plus. I can't hang like that anymore anyway. There's people out there that never even got a shot yet. So not shot in vaccine, but I mean a shot at just doing the things that we've been able to experience in a short time. And I will say, I think the human spirit at the end of the day will do its best to triumph and persevere. So.
yeah, and it's funny you say that, EJ. I was going to make this point later in the podcast when we got to talk about the vaccine, but when you bring up the administration that was in place when COVID first started, you have a president who's a fucking idiot in Trump. He put somebody in charge of the education department, and Betsy DeVos, who's a person who seems to not even believe in public education, and you know we don't get no leadership from the top to make things as best as possible, for kids. And for people, there are people out there who either don't vote, or even when they vote they say, oh, it doesn't really matter, both sides are the same, and yada yada yada. It matters who's in charge of government and who's in charge of these agencies, and you look at what we had under an Obama, who had Arnie Duncan as his first
Arnie, I
secretary of
said Archie.
education.
My bad.
He had Arnie Duncan as his first education secretary, a guy who ran Chicago schools. Arnie Duncan stayed about 6 years on the job, and then once he left, Obama brought in, I can't think of the guy's name, but he was the guy who ran schools in New York or whatever. Trump brings in Betsy DeVos, a person who seems to not believe in public education. Now she leaves. We have Biden in charge, and Biden puts in, I think his name is Emmanuel Cordona, a guy who runs schools in Connecticut. You know, um, so these are people, you kind of look at that sandwich there. You got people who fundamentally care about education, who work within the education system, who are in charge of educations, sandwiched in between those two people is a person who seems to not even care about education. And then you look at the result that we get when we get in the middle of this clusterfuck in COVID. So who's in charge fucking matters.
Yeah, it's the I'm just here for the paycheck person that's there versus the person that's actually there for the greater good. But I think they need to incorporate some type of virtual delivery into course study for education in the future. People going into that field to help prevent this in the future. We have people that have now lived through it. You have people that have maybe been successful through it and have some good tips, and maybe getting them all together and putting some core study together so that in the future, should this happen again, we're prepared. But absolutely
I think that's a
necessary.
great idea. I think that's a great idea, Steve.
It
Like when
has
they
to
when they're
be.
going to college,
It
make it like a
has to be.
class. One of the requirements to
It
take
has to be.
virtual learning.
It has to be because teachers are classically trained in instructional manners to learn a classroom, to learn how to manage a classroom, the social cues of the kids, the behavior of the kids, everything. I mean, when you think about it, when you're in a meeting now, and there are people that still can't get the concept of putting things on mute,
Dog.
so it's just, it has to, everything that we do now, even in law enforcement, even in customer service, everything we do from now on has to be different. Just like back in the first flu outbreaks, or during the plagues, they didn't wash their hands frequently. They didn't use soap. They didn't do different things. Things change. Things happen. Whether it's Mother Nature, whether it's human error, whether it's anything, it's gonna impact our fabric of life, and we can't continue to take things for granted. So I mean, that's a hell of a point.
After all this is said and done, if I never hear the fucking phrase "sorry I was on mute" again, I'll be okay. Like, I am so tired of that shit. VP, you brought up the vaccine briefly. You were vaccinated. How's the arm? How you feeling? Anything in this first week or second week? I guess, right? This is the second week.
Nah, I'm on week 3 now, man.
Week three. Okay.
Yeah, my arm totally fine. It was sore for about 2 days, post vaccination. I didn't get sick or have any bad feelings or anything like that. I go for my actual second dose of the Pfizer vaccine this coming Friday on the 19th. My wife just got vaccinated on Friday. She got the Pfizer vaccine as well. No issues at all. She had the same thing as me, but she had a little bit of arm soreness at the spot that they did the vaccination at on her arm. Um, that happened on Friday, a little bit on Saturday, but now she feels totally fine as far as the arm is concerned. Um, so like I've been saying on this podcast, is the vaccine, and from everything I understand about it, is safe, and I hope that people will take it when it's their turn. Um, Speaking of the vaccine, I'm not sure if this is where you were going with the question, Steve, though, but Biden announced on Thursday that the U.S. will have enough vaccine for every American by the end of May. That target was moved up from the end of July. So definitely moving in the right direction. And he has directed states to make the vaccine available to everybody starting May 1st. So for right now, they're kind of doing these queues where like it's based on age, based on medical conditions and things like that. But Biden has directed the states um, that by May 1st, they need to make the vaccine available to everyone in their state. And I thought that this was a good thing. I've been kind of preaching this from the beginning. The thing I don't like that the government did at first is they allow the states to decide who gets the vaccine when. The CDC put out some guidelines, but the states were kind of doing their own thing. So you have 50 different strategies on how the vaccine is being distributed. And I thought that the federal government should take more of a role in saying how the vaccine should be distributed. The federal government put the money out there through that program that the Trump administration put in place, Operation Warp Speed, to try to bring the vaccine to market faster. I'll give them kudos on that. I don't give them kudos on a lot. That program was good. It worked. Um, um, Now that we
I
have the
want to note for
vaccine,
the record that I brought it up once initially on this pod, and VP tore my head off. It's probably in one of the episodes at some point. He said no. Fucking bullshit. It's bullshit. No.
Well,
Just for the record.
Now he got his MAGA hat on.
Well, I apologize for that or whatever. I got to check the tape, but so now, but the federal government paid for these vaccines to come to market. The federal government is buying the vaccines from these companies, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. The federal government is paying for the distribution of these vaccines, and the people who are receiving the vaccines are getting them for free. So they should be able to have a role to tell the states, this is how the vaccine needs to be distributed, instead of letting the states decide on their own. And as we can see, here in Florida, EJ, with DeSantis, who seems to be handing out the vaccine based on political considerations or people who donated money to his campaign and things like that, you wouldn't see those kind of issues if the federal government took more of a role in deciding where the vaccine should go and how it should be distributed.
And unfortunately, I think at this point, Biden is just trying to get people to work and play along and do what they have to do because, he's coming in on the back end with a lot of this stuff and how it was rolled out. So he's just trying to make sure it operates as best as possible. But yeah, I totally agree that was, but I mean, look who we had in office,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to our listeners over in Alaska, I would just say, because they kind of been feeling themselves this week. Because when Biden made that announcement, Alaska was basically like, we've been giving the vaccine out to everybody, already. We're on top of our shit over here. Look at us, popping the collar and shit. And I would say, if Alaska was in Florida, it would be the 7th largest county populations wise. So, we got bigger fish to fry over here on the mainland. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, do you feel like have they started testing the vaccine on children at all?
No. I think from my understanding, kids can take it if they're above the age of 16, but for children under 16, it's not recommended they get it because they didn't have children in the trials. And so when the vaccines first rolled out, it wasn't going to kids and it wasn't going to pregnant women because they weren't a part of the trials. After some time of distribution, now the I forget the exact board, but it's like one of those boards, like, you have like the American Heart Association or whatever, one of those boards for like OBGYNs. They recommend that pregnant women, take the vaccine. Of course, don't take medical advice from a podcast. Listen to your doctor, talk to your doctor if you're pregnant or whatever.
Don't get pregnant.
But but for kids right now, it's still not recommended that kids take it just because there's no data. But the whatever board that is that kind of makes recommendation on pregnant women did recommend that if women are pregnant, they should get vaccinated. The vaccine doesn't seem to be a problem for the woman themselves or the unborn child.
Where's my So all right, so we're talking about that Biden made his address, right? The other night. The 1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill was signed into legislation, right?
Signed into law on Thursday.
Thursday
afternoon.
Okay. Stimmies are starting to hit. People are starting to get a little bit of money in their bank accounts. Listen, when are they gonna get rid of my student
loans? To be honest, man, that seems to be on the back burner. You've had people on the more progressive side of the Democratic caucus, people like
Bernie.
AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie, Chuck Schumer. Because I keep telling you guys, 2022, Chuck Schumer's up for re-election, and every time he looks behind him, he sees AOC. She hasn't said anything yet, but there are people who are nudging her to run. And so Schumer is the Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, senator from New York. He's been on this student loan thing. He's been pushing Biden. Bernie, like like EJ said,
Liz.
Pramila, the Congresswoman from Washington State, Pramila Jayapal, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley from Massachusetts. They've
My
been
girl
on
Liz.
this shit. Yeah, I said Warren from the beginning, Elizabeth Warren, E-dubs.
He does.
They've been pushing him, but it seems like the next thing that the Biden administration is going to try to tackle is going to be infrastructure. So, you know, I don't know. To answer your question, Steve, the answer is I don't know. They seem to have put it on the back burner for sure. It's like on the back burner of like a fucking 10 burner stove. You know, it's like way back there.
They need to tackle the infrastructure of student loans. That's what they need to tackle. In this
and
bill,
and
no,
also, Steve, to your point, Biden has seemed to only be willing to forgive about $10,000. Other people want him to go as high as 50. Biden seems to be in the $10,000 range, and that could be where, you know, whatever is happening behind the scenes, that could kind of be what's slowing it down to where Biden's saying 10, other people are saying no, you should do more, and maybe they're trying to figure out a number.
just split hairs, and stop at like $42,673. Like that's a perfect amount for every American, you know. But so in the bill, there was some stuff that got kicked out, right? The $15 minimum wage. Do you either of you guys, and I was trying to find it, so I'm gonna put you on the spot, VP, see how much you've been paying attention. The child tax credit, 3,3600 for those under 6. I know that was in there initially when the House sent it through. Did that change? Was that something that was changed along with the minimum wage, or is that, like, can I do my taxes once my stimmy comes in?
No, that part of the bill survived. So they did change the child tax credit to $3,600 for children under 6, and $3,000 for children between the ages of 6 and 17. Now, a couple things to keep in mind is that first, that part of the bill won't actually go into effect until sometime like in July, because this is like a new program. So the Treasury Department, IRS, they're going to have to get that portion of the bill, study it, come up with regulations and things like that before they start pumping the money out. But it's going to allow people to, instead of waiting to get the child tax credit when you file taxes in the following year, you'll be able to opt into a system to where you receive the credit either on a monthly or quarterly basis for your kid. Or you could just choose to not opt in and take care of it at tax time the following year. Also, people need to understand, because I could definitely see this happening, that because of the way this bill was passed using the budget reconciliation process in the Senate, there are certain rules in time horizons that certain things have to meet in order to fit the budget reconciliation rules in the Senate. So that portion of the bill will only be in effect for 1 year. So next year, that's gone. It's gonna just expire or whatever. So people shouldn't count on that monthly income that they receive for the child to be here in perpetuity. It's gonna expire after a year. You know, now people like Richie Neal, who is the congressman from New York, he's also chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction for writing tax policy in the House of Representatives. He's talked about wanting to make that portion permanent, and he's floating around some ideas within the Democratic caucus in the House to make that portion of the legislation permanent. In order to do so, however, they'll have to either get 10 Republicans on the Senate side to agree with them, or they would have to change the filibuster rules in the Senate to just go through with just a simple majority of Democratic votes. So, watch this space. But, for now, just know that it's only for 1 year, that portion.
Okay. Some additional highlights that I saw was the eviction ban was had already been extended, but it's safe through September 30th.
So
I wanted to talk about the press conference though. and just
Can
shout out.
I say something real quick on
I,
that ban real quick, EJ?
I'm gonna be quicker than you because you're never really quick. I just want to shout out Uncle Joe for directly addressing the racial attacks and nonsense that Asian Americans have been going through, largely due to Donald Trump's fuckery. So shout out to Uncle Joe.
Shout out to Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think it was great that Biden did address the you know, the racial discrimination and violence that's happening in the AAPI community. For those listening, the AAPIs is Asian American Pacific Islanders. Um, but yeah, you know, so I'm glad that he shouted that out, and I hope that the Justice Department and law enforcement, you know, when these things happen, I hope that they bring the full force of law at these people who are attacking Asian Americans and things like that. That shit is just uncalled for. It's super fucked up. To Steve's point about the eviction moratorium, so the bill did extend the eviction moratorium. However, there was a court case recently where a group of landlords sued the CDC, saying that the government overstepped its authority in putting in eviction moratoriums to begin with, and they won that case. That case is going to be appealed in the court, so the ruling hasn't gone into effect yet. But
it's a landmark
there
decision.
is the the bill did continue the moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, but we got something brewing in the courts right now. So watch this space is what I would say on that.
Yeah, that's a landmark decision that could set some precedents going forward because they have, depending on their argument, I could see where they might have some leeway, and I could see that, landlords saying, hey, if you're gonna do this, you got to give us more relief. You have to give us direct stuff because there was a lot of gray area on what actually happens with that, because while you're not collecting something, there are other things that are falling short, maintenance and bills. And, we didn't really hear a lot of the specifics on how that was being taken care of. We just assumed a lot, so I'm pretty sure there are things out there, but it wasn't widely being said. And I could see how possibly a lot of that stuff fell by the wayside because our administration had no real plan or agenda for it. So, yeesh, that's a little rough.
And part of the difference is, EJ, is that, like for me, for example, I live in an apartment. My apartment complex is owned by a corporation. So they probably were able to get money through PPP and all that stuff like that to stay afloat. So they was all good if people weren't able to pay their rent. Okay, we can't evict them, but we got this money from the government. But now what happens to Willie, who worked this job for 30 years and then he decided to buy a duplex to make some extra money, and now those people aren't paying their rent, and he's like, yo, the bank's still coming at me for this mortgage, but they not paying the rent. You know what I'm saying? And
But
so
more
people
so,
like that who are individual landlords, I think that they're the ones that are hurting in this, and not necessarily
exactly.
corporations that own property.
New York City, I knew a guy in the South Bronx who owned a building who did all of the maintenance himself. He lived there, you know what I'm saying? So then you got to think New York City didn't pull back on the fines and the trash stuff, and people were getting taxed in different places for trash removal where the city was failing to remove the trash. So now I got to deal with all this nonsense that were problems created by you because you couldn't get the sanitation workers out there because you didn't keep them safe. I mean, shit, Baltimore City's still dealing with sanitation issues, like where we missed trash day last week. Last week they didn't come get the trash. But now whoever does, I think DPW, Department of Public Works, does the recycling removal because they always come on time. But I don't know that it's the same branch in sanitation. I don't know what that is, but 1 week the trash wasn't collected. So, in a place like New York City, where they still clicking in a lot of areas and doing different things, I'm sure some of these landlords were getting hit if they had an elevator that needed to get, relicensed and fixed, and it's just a ripple effect, and to, culminate everything we've been talking about. This stuff really hit us hard and caught us with our pants down. Como style.
Mm-hmm.
Aha.
Two more pieces because I don't want to spend too much longer on this. But one thing on that, VP, the earned income credit was supposed to increase as well uh for individuals who may not have kids. They can have some type of tax benefit there. It was going to go up from like 521 to 1052 or something like that. It was something, I don't know the exact numbers. Do you know if that stayed in the bill off top?
I'm not familiar with that portion of the bill, so I don't have an answer for you on that.
Okay, we'll research that. And then the last thing, is TurboTax aware that they need to be putting $3,600 into my return when I go through and do this after my stimmy comes?
Yeah, they should be. I mean, I'm pretty sure once the I'm pretty sure once they get the rules from the IRS, they'll update their software. But again, remember that change is not going to affect your taxes this year. It's for your 2021 taxes that you file in 2022.
Oh,
But
damn it.
you'll have the option to opt in to receive the credit on a monthly basis. It'll be prorated, so you'll start getting it from July going forward, and then you'll get the rest when you file taxes in 2022. Or if you're somebody like me and my wife, we set up our taxes to where
My mom does taxes. So she would
we
know.
set up our withholding to where we pay just about what we should pay. So when we get a return, it's usually like $100 or $200, or we end up owing like $100 or $200.
Yeah.
We don't like letting the government borrow money interest free. So we don't want to get a $5,000 return.
I
But
think
for us, we feel like we're right on that bubble of either not owing or owing. So we're not going to opt in. We're going to just wait and take care of it in 2022. You know what I mean? But for
yeah.
other people who, maybe you're a person who gets, a $4,000 return or whatever. So for them, they may say, fuck it, I'm going to opt in and get some of this money up front instead of waiting until tax time next year. But TurboTax, once the IRS puts the rules and regulations in place, they'll update their software to take care of that whenever it is that you file your taxes and you're supposed to get these credits.
Man, I'm tired of Joe and his shit. Making me wait till 2022. Uh,
Moneybag Joe.
Moneybag Joe. All Star Weekend was last All Star Night. But it looked like All Star Weekend by the looks of people's Instagram stories. People were out there just being real irresponsible. They were on the EJ shit. I seen all types of open ass
Slander.
on
Wow.
Instagram.
I'm just it's slander. It's incredible.
Were you in Atlanta last week, EJ?
I haven't been to Atlanta in 10 years. 10
Yeah,
years.
I saw a video of somebody it was All Star Weekend, or it was last week. They were in Atlanta. I don't know where they were at, but the lobby of this hotel looked, or no, it wasn't even the lobby. It was like a restaurant in the hotel. It looked like it's an upscale place. And the guy was like, "I'm in this spot. They charging $1,300 a night for rooms.
Oh,
Like, look at
Gilly.
this restaurant we in." And there was a group of black dudes in the corner who had a dice game going on. Like, you see
Nope.
people sitting around drinking wine, white folks. And then in the corner, there's dudes in like sweats and hoodies.
Listen,
Had a legit dice
if he
game
knew what
going
I
on.
knew, he should have got up in that. He should have made an investment. If you know what I know, he might have came up that night. Listen, guys, can I interest you in a hand on this?
Yeah, no surprise there, man. All Star Weekend, we out there being real blackish. I can only imagine it's probably all over the place. They probably had somebody in the other corner playing 3 card. Yeah. Follow the red, never the black. Oh shit. But how'd you guys like the uh the 3-point contest and dunk contest being at halftime and such? What was your takeaway from last Saturday or Sunday rather? I'm sorry.
I actually miss the skills competition because I thought everything was happening at halftime, not just the dunk contest.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I actually started watching, it was probably like 5 minutes before tip off. So I missed the skills competition. I thought the dunk contest was okay, but I've been saying for a while they need to be rethought, or maybe they need to let it go for a little bit and bring it back later or something. But overall, I thought they did a good job considering that I didn't think they should have the game to begin with.
Yeah, and then we missed the other aspect of the GoFundMe pages that were started for people that were stranded down there, which is
Hoes. Don't say people.
and no, it was yeah, but yeah, I just didn't want that to go unnoticed. But dunk competition, I thought Obi Toppin should have won. Of course, I'm biased, but I just thought he
Surprise.
should have won. 3-point competition, Steph Curry. Skills joint was pretty cool. They breezed through that pretty fast. And then the game was cool. The game was good. I didn't like the new quarter concept, but I think the logic behind that was that over the years you get tired of seeing that high ass score running, and I think that could maybe deter people. But I think all in all, it was cool in the end because guys were getting well, not even in the end. I think throughout they were kind of showing flashes of competitive spirit, and Kyrie was trying to best LeBron. It seemed I don't know him and LeBron thing, man. I think they need to figure that out somewhere. But I thought it was overall good, and I think we saw the two COVID instances with Embiid and Simmons, but that turned out to not be too much later on, as Embiid has returned and now been hurt. But I'm just glad it wasn't a lot of outbreaks and stuff like that we know of. So they did a good job with that because we were pessimistic on that aspect.
I had a couple takeaways from it. And you mentioned a little bit of it, EJ. Number one, the Embiid and Simmons piece to it. I got to commend the NBA on that for making them sit out, making them not, participate because, you could lose fans, right? Fans voted Embiid in as the starting center. You could upset people, and the fan base by making that decision. I mean, and it wasn't like they popped a posse. It was just because they, through contact tracing, they were part of it. So
Mm-hmm.
they were identified, and it came out that they were negative, right? So it wasn't, hindsight is 2020. We talk about that, but got to commend them on that, right? Taking every initiative to be safe and keep the other players safe. So appreciate that from the NBA, of course. But yeah, I mean the takeaways for me. Did you guys notice that the skills challenge came down to a big man? We're
Two
seeing
wasn't it two big men?
two big men, but we're seeing the
Sabonis
league.
and
Sabonis and Vucevic.
yeah,
But we're seeing
Europeans.
we're seeing the league change completely in the fact that big men are not hanging out down on the block anymore as much. So I think that's a testament to where the NBA is going. And people killed Rasheed Wallace when he decided he was going to be a shooter. So we see big men being different there. Dunk contest was all right, but I think to your point, VP, it was where it needs to be. Keep it short. I think the best part of dunk contest probably for the last 5 years is seeing the stars on the side acting crazy, acting a fool,
Mm-hmm.
showing out. So yeah, if we're talking about actual talent being showcased, yeah, leave it where it was at. Get 2 to 3 good, 4, really good people. Maybe get some YouTube, some sensations and stuff like that. Get them involved until the dunk contest gets a name back. And then obviously 3-point contest. 3-point contest is always one of the best for me. And Steph Curry, as expected, took it. But it came down to the wire, it came down to the last shot. So yeah, but I like the. I thought they did a good job considering they tried to squeeze everything into a quick 3-4 hour time slot, and we got it all. We got all the content that we normally get in a and so yeah, that was good. But
Shout out to the NBA and the emphasis on HBCUs. As
yeah, that
somebody
too.
who attended an HBCU, the Delaware State University, it was just a beautiful moment to see them capture or attempt to capture the essence of what an HBCU stands for. And just, shout out to Chris Paul for continuing to try to champion those efforts because HBCUs are extremely important to the workforce as far as you're talking about, education and higher education. It's extremely important for our children of color to have places and institutions that they can go to, where they don't have to fear racism. Um, they don't have to fear physical racism on campus from their fellow students for the most part. So just shout out to the NBA for doing that, and LeBron and Team Durant for their contributions to different scholarship funds.
Facts.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that it's huge because you see the NBA did that, and now we're seeing like Champ Sports, Foot Locker, and these other manufacturers putting out merch and gear, geared around HBCUs. And sure, their ultimate goal is to make money, and they're gonna benefit off of it in that sense. But at least you got people getting the information out there and having access to it. I'm sorry, my computer's doing some weird shit over here, so I'm
Nah,
I'm
but
getting my thought.
to your point, Steve. Though I don't have a problem with them making money, right? But if you look at it at a, on a larger scale, you start putting some of these jerseys or whatever kind of merch out there from these HBCUs, and people buy them. That's you making more money. Some of that money is going to the school, which allows them to make their schools and their programs and things like that better. Once those things start getting better and more recognized, you start selling more merch. You know what I mean? So it's benefiting everybody who's involved in it except for the athletes. Um um all at the same time. You know what I mean? So I don't have a problem with them doing that, and I think they should do more of it.
Yeah, there used to be a time culturally, in the '90s where we as a people, you know, you can go back to the rappers, to the actors, people that didn't even attend HBCUs, um, were more aware and supported it. Queen Latifah was somebody who was very adamant about that heavy D. So I think just like to what both of you guys are kind of alluded to, just putting that in the air, in space and time, it's good one way or the other, because there are so many people who don't know about HBCUs. I didn't even really know about them until my later time in high school, and where I didn't want to go necessarily to a large white school. Although now athletically, I would probably taken a shot at it for other selfish reasons. But my experience at it was unmatched, and I wouldn't even have known about it had it not been for a homegirl of mine and my best friend at the time that was murdered. But I wouldn't even have known. So yeah, shout out to the
No,
NBA for making it a
you're
national thing.
you're absolutely right, EJ. Like I didn't know about HBCUs until maybe later in high school. I remember when I was a kid, me and my friends used to talk about how everybody went to FAMU, and we used to be like, man, it's like if you black in Miami, you go to FAMU. Like, there ain't no other colleges out there, and that's as a kid, not knowing that FAM, was an HBCU, and that's why everybody go there. or whatever. I'm thinking like, why come they don't go to UM or whatever? Like I didn't even know UM was like a private school back then.
Did you
or
just
whatever,
say why come? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I say that all the time.
He was in Miami for a second. Now, yeah, relax.
No, he was in slavery for a second.
But speaking to your point, VP, that is just a really quick touch on that aspect. You know, in Baltimore and in the Maryland greater area, there are at least a few HBCUs within 45 minutes of one another. You have Coppin, Morgan, Bowie State, and then a little further, you got Howard and UDC. You often find people from here that will say, I don't want to go to Morgan. That's like the 13th grade. And I don't want to go to Bowie. You know, there are a lot of people that shit on the HBCU experience to want to go get a degree from there, but they'll come to the homecoming. They'll come be Black for a moment in time. And I've alluded to this on the podcast before. You know, stop trying to put the onus simply on athletes, right? If you're not telling your nieces and nephews to go get a degree from there, don't tell the athletes to do it, because everybody has their selfish reasons for wanting to go to college. And athlete, you know, a lot of them may want to go to HBCU, but it's a business decision. You know, if I'm Lonzo Ball, if I'm Melo Ball, if I'm Don Maker, well, Don Maker actually went to HBCU, but if I'm the number one recruit in the sport, I'm looking at it as a business decision to go to the D1A program. It's not always going to be in my best interest, but you know, not every athlete has that opportunity, and not every student has to go to the University of Maryland. You know, I know some instances it's a financial thing, but you know, if you have an ability to pay for a HBCU degree versus a degree from a predominantly white institution, where you go there and you have students that want to create an all-white student union because they feel like an all-Black student union is racist. You know, you know, go to the HBCU. Don't shit on the experience, especially if you want to come party with us at homecoming and then be on social media talking your blackness when you didn't want to go to the HBCU. That's my rant, but you know.
Yeah. So you know, yeah, and I was somewhat familiar with HBCUs. I was younger though, because my sister went to an HBCU. She went to Norfolk State University for a short time, and you know, we toured the campus and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. So as a young person, not fully in tune with what it was, you know, we were there, right? And that was back in the time where motherfuckers were wearing the Africa charms and you know the black beads and shit like that. So you know, that was a big, you know, Spike Lee type shit. So, but
I never knew that.
You didn't know my sister went to Norfolk?
I had no idea.
Yeah, and you know, so that was cool. But yeah, to your point, EJ. I mean, everybody want to stomp the yard and wear fucking combat boots, but they don't want to fucking they don't want to actually go to HBCU to do it. You know, can't be Mu Gamma. So listen, man, what do you guys think are my percentages if I climb in J Lo's DMs today?
Well, Alex Rodriguez said they're not officially broken up just yet. So
yeah, that's probably for the that's just for the public eye. But do you think you know should I hit her with the I'm sorry to hear?
I mean, I don't know if she's gonna be going with anybody who fall into the DMs, you know, and I'm pretty sure that happens in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. So you'd have to send that DM at the precisely right time for her to see it.
If a science teacher could get with
that's where I was going.
Mackenzie.
I was gonna
we just gotta know where to congregate, dog.
Yeah, I gotta know, because I think when we talked about it in the chat and to bring the audience in, Mackenzie Scott, who is the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, billionaire woman, married a guy who's a retired science teacher. She married a guy who's a retired science teacher.
He's retired too. He's not even working.
Well, no
he
word
is
on if
now.
he retired after he got married.
Oh my
I
god.
don't know when the retirement happened. You know, he might have been like, "Hey, fuck y'all,
Right.
dropping my papers." You
Right.
know,
I ain't doing this virtual learning shit no more.
yeah. I don't know when the retirement happened, but anyway,
I believe in God.
I think I think Steve's point, because my whole thing was, how does a guy who's a retired science teacher or whatever, how does he meet a billionaire? And Steve brought up the point of maybe they met at a wedding, some kind of 6 degrees of separation kind of shit. They got some mutual friends that was at a wedding. Maybe they chopped it up at the bar. He hit it off, and then boom, next thing you know, he hit it off. So, so you probably need some shit like that to happen, So maybe start dropping into the DMs or friend requesting some of the friends, and then that way,
right?
you can engineer a meeting.
I
I
should
always
build a
say,
friendship with
man.
her mom, right?
I always say, man. Listen, Jill Scott, Jasmine Sullivan. I get a conversation. I'm in there. It's a wrap. Trying to tell you.
EJ, look who he's targeting.
What, some beautiful black women, huh?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
A young lady who gives blowjobs to a fucking microphone at her shows.
And your point is,
But I mean, what's the difference between that and like Cardi B doing WAP?
I see no problem with that either.
No, I don't. I'm saying, what's the difference?
Oh no, just I mean, listen. I mean, Cardi 2 is over. I could connect. New York.
Listen,
I speak a little Spanglish.
I'm not a Cardi fan like that.
Somebody tell J-Lo I got $1,400 coming.
Coming with your own money, huh? I'm coming with my own money, girl.
The boy got his own money.
I'm doing it.
The boy got his own money.
Hey, you think rich. You think Mackenzie made science teacher sign a prenup?
Nope.
Without a doubt.
Nope.
I don't think so. I don't think so. She's one of those not gonna say it. She's different. She's cut from a different cloth. Isn't she one of those groups where they like throw all their wealth together and shit, and they spread it across the world, and they don't leave it to like the people that they, to their loved ones and shit?
She did the giving pledge with Warren Buffett, where they agree to give away all of their money in their lifetime, or if they die, earlier than expected, or I mean, I guess nobody expects to die, but I guess like before old age, they set it up to be given away, to not just be passed on to heirs.
That means before rich white people expect to die, which is like 99, 120.
Yeah. Meghan Markle. What do you guys think about that whole thing, man? What do you think about Prince Harry? You think he's a hero? For for saying fuck you to his family and sticking by his wife and his baby's mother, because child support would have been something crazy, or like, what do you guys think? I mean, we know that the royal family is some scumbag. We knew that for years, right? But what do you guys think, man? What do you guys think of that whole situation?
It's time for us to get canceled now, huh?
I'm just asking the question.
I mean, I think it's.
What's the backstory? What's the backstory on it? Because we might have people listening that are unfamiliar.
Long story short, black lady marries into the royal family, experiences racism from the royal white old family. End the story.
She's light skinned.
She ain't white enough.
I know. They did so there was an interview that came out with Prince Harry and his wife and the mother of his child, Meghan Markle, and with Oprah, if I didn't say that. And they stated that there was racial undertone when speaking to other members of the royal family in regards to their baby. What's the baby's name again?
Archie.
Archie.
I was gonna say, what did Michael Jackson name one of them kids?
And one of the concerns, one of the Bubbles. You talking about Bubbles the monkey?
No, man. What did he name? Blanket.
Oh, Blanket. One of the concerns was the skin tone. One day we're gonna have that conversation at them kids ain't Michael's.
We talked about it once.
Yeah. But one of the concerns by members of the royal family allegedly was the tone of the skin of the baby. And concerned that the baby came out darker than expected. I mean, considering I thought maybe they thought that because he was a ginger that he would take the majority of the hereditary genes and maybe the baby will come out red, but I think they came out a little dark. Came out a little dark for their liking, left in the oven a little too long. So Prince Harry has made the decision that he is leaving the racist family of his behind, and he is coming to America, where racism is not resident. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, here's the thing, Harry's been in this family since birth, right? This family is not like traditional families, right? Where maybe you only can trace your family lineage back one, maybe two generations, especially for Black people, given slavery and that kind of thing. This is a family that can literally trace its lineage back like 1,000 years. You know what I mean? Like it's insane, like how far back they can trace their family tree. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And for Meghan's part, to think that a family that goes back thousands of years, who've subjugated people of color all throughout the world, in the Caribbean, in India, in parts of China, all throughout Latin America and South America and Central America, the United States and Canada, Australia, Africa, to think that those same people who also, a lot of people don't know this or whatever, they're not really British, they're actually German. You know what I mean?
9.
So to think that those folks have no traces of racism whatsoever is like, come on, dog. Are you serious? You know what I mean? I mean, they may be woke now, in 2020, but come on. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I believe that some shit was said, and maybe for Harry, maybe he's heard shit before, but it hit different when you're married to a Black woman and have a biracial son. You know what I mean? And so maybe some shit that you were willing to hear at the dinner party, and even if you didn't agree with it, you were willing to overlook, but it hit different when it comes at you personally. You know what I mean? And not him, he's white, but like I said, he's married to a biracial woman and has a biracial son. And so maybe he's like, yo, fuck that, yo. You're not gonna be coming at me like that no more, But at the end of the day though, man, like royalty in general is stupid to me. It kind of goes back to the religion thing we talked about earlier in the cast. Calling people, your royal highness and all this kind of shit like that. That shit is ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, so, it's whatever to me. It's not a big deal. I'm not overly worked up about it. I'm neutral on it. I don't care a lot. I don't care a little. It's just whatever.
I think it speaks to the larger thing for me, not just them specifically, because they had different news stations had different people coming up, not news stations, but different political outlets rather had people coming on talking about their experiences of marrying into a white family. Largely was Black people talking about it, and I don't know, man. That's a risk I guess you have to take and bear, understanding that people are racist, and not only that, but prejudiced. Even if you're Hispanic and you're marrying somebody black or Latino or whatever it is, there's going to be prejudices across the aisle, one way or the other. And I guess you have to have some level of acceptance of that, and kind of deal. And like VP said, for you to think that it wasn't present, to me is a little naive.
especially in this family.
Yeah,
Given the history of the family that I said.
exactly. I mean, you have had to have done your research. And I mean, shit. I mean, not even just the royal family. I mean, if you're marrying a white dude from Texas or Boston, wherever, I mean, you got to think to some degree, if it's not his immediate mother and father, it might be cousin Jeb. It might be Bill Senior. No relation to the Bushes or anything, but so that's kind of something. And is it something that is unfortunate? Yeah, sure. But today's day and age, it's a little, and then you marry someone. Period. You gotta understand that their family might have different prejudices or biases or anything. Like if you marry somebody from the projects, and their uncle come over, you might want to put up your liquor.
And to your point, EJ, I know you tried to exclude the Bushes, but there's a thing out there back when George H.W. Bush, so Bush 41, when he was introducing his family to Ronald Reagan when they first got together on the ticket when Reagan picked Bush to be his vice president in the 80s. And he tells them like, "Oh, there's Jeb's kids over there, Jeb Bush." For those who don't know, Jeb Bush is married to a Mexican woman, and he says those are Jeb's kids over there, the dark ones. So you know what I'm saying? Like, so let's not let the Bushes just skate.
Nah, I actually threw that alley oop up there because but
like
I
something
was,
about Mary.
yeah.
Notice something different about those boys.
No, that wasn't something about Mary. That was me, myself, and Irene.
Yeah,
Boy, dicks as big as these sausages. Yo, that was a funny ass.
Oh man.
What you think? What you think the end point for Prince Harry was? What you think like the line was? Like you think when the Queen came out and was like ooh, ooh, to the little baby, instead of doing like
Oh my god.
I don't think he really mad about that shit. What is he gonna do? Disown his 1,000-year legacy family? Get the fuck out of here. You gonna look, Megan. I didn't talk to them. They're sorry. We're gonna keep collecting these checks. Like all the shit where they talking about they want to abandon the throne. And part of me is asking, like, did you do this just to piss your family off at this point? Like, come on, man. Like you don't run from that. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that you have is attributed to where you come from. It's not like this dude got it through the mud, right? You know what I'm saying? So where's he really gonna go? Now he's established. Yeah, sure. But you mean to tell me he's gonna be willing to really abandon all of that? Come on now. Nah.
or change it.
Harry already had money, right? Diana, through Diana, she left him and William money that's independent of the royal family.
Right.
She left them about $10 million.
But there's nothing in comparison to being a royal.
No. I mean, well, so let me say this. So I've talked a lot about my disdain for royalty in general, but I actually read a lot about this particular royal family specifically, and they're actually not that rich. A lot of people think that they are, but I mean,
it's the power that still comes with it, though.
But Harry doesn't really have that much power because Harry's not next in line. Harry's like 7th in line to be king.
Yeah, but right? They still have security detail. They're still never gonna go broke. They're still never gonna lack a place to live.
And that's where I'm going. That's exactly where I'm going to answer Steve's question on what potentially was the breaking point, right? And so the way that it works in the royal family, based on decrees that were made by King George, Elizabeth's father, and then that were also expanded upon by Elizabeth herself. The whole thing with titles being able to be called prince or princess, it only can be given to male line heirs, um to the sovereign, meaning like the king or the queen or whatever, right? And so when you look at Elizabeth's own children, she has three children, three boys, one girl. Princess Anne actually is her firstborn, but because men take precedent, when Charles was born second, that's why Charles is next in line to be king. And then Anne, every time a new male was born, Anne kept falling down the line. Now, based on these decrees that, like I said, King George as well as Queen Elizabeth has made, it says that only male line children and grandchildren of the sovereign can get the title prince and princess, right? But they didn't give Harry's kid a title. Him not having that title, being able to be a prince or a princess, is not going to allow him to have the security and things like that that's provided to them. And like I said earlier, with the racism thing, maybe it's like, okay, I heard these things at a dinner party, but whatever. Now I'm hearing these things and it's impacting me personally because this is my wife, this is my son. They did this thing. They didn't give my son a title, which now allows him to not have security. They talked about how much death threats Megan's gets and the racism, things like that. Those same kind of things are going to be happening to his kid. So he's probably like, yo, fuck y'all, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about his kid. I'm talking about him, abandoning something that has been ingrained in him through his entire life. That the likelihood of that happening, to me, is far fetched. It's just not. I don't see it happening. I just don't. And they had money and they're fine from their mom, cool. But just the lure of being the prince and the benefits that he's lived from that for all this time, he's never leaving that. Never leaving that. It's not. No way. Not gonna happen. Still a prince. Because if Megan leave tomorrow, I'm still a prince, bitch.
Well, he's still a prince now. He still got the title and things like that. The only thing that really kind of got taken away is that the queen said, like, if they're not going to be what they call working royals, meaning like working, like they go out and promote charities and they do things on behalf of the queen, that they can't use like their official title, which is the Duke and Duchess of
Wales.
shit, I forget.
Not Wales.
Sussex.
No,
That's Charles. Well, Charles is the Prince of Wales, not the
Wales.
Duke.
Right.
But they can't use their title, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, anymore. But he's still Prince Harry. He's still Charles's son. That's not going to change. So to EJ's point, if him and Megan were to break up, does he go back home? Probably.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, regardless of what happens in some hypothetical future, he still has this half black son, and I think that prime is probably the primary driver of whatever it is that happened between him and his family, to whether it was on the racism front, the security front, whatever. He still has this child that is his responsibility to take care of and ensure has proper security around him. I mean, for us, when we think security, we think, oh, I got to make sure I'm not breaking into my home. Like this guy is a public figure who have people who have never met him sending him death threats and shit like that. You know what I mean? And not to mention, during the Oprah interview, Megan talked about how she was having problems with all the death threats and she was having suicidal thoughts. She wanted to kill herself, and she tried to get help, and they told her, you can't get help because it'll look bad. And so again, this is this man's wife. You know what I mean? Like, at some point,
Harry has to deal with it because if you love her at all, and it's a problem for her, it's damn sure gonna be a problem for you, bro.
Right. You know, and we've said it on this podcast plenty of times because I know where EJ's going. It's undefeated, you know, and so you know,
Happy
So
wife, happy life.
I was just thinking, they probably
undefeated.
they probably made a controversy because 30 years down the line, they don't want, the royal family to be a bunch of black people. 'Cause, eventually them genes gonna cross. He's gonna possibly like another minority. Now you got, Prince baby, black, half black with a, princess who's black. Now you just start. Now you got spades and fucking cornrows and royal homes and castles and shit. Um, that's probably what they're trying to get away from. All
I mean,
right.
hey, and that Steve, that's not a crazy thought, you know, and it goes back to, um, you usually see it in art, right? Like in movies and plays, but it happened in real. That's not made up. That's why people who were royalty marry each other. You have people marrying their sisters and their cousins because that's why they call them blue bloods. They wanted to keep the blood pure, and so you have somebody like William who married Kate, and she's seen as a commoner, even though her family's rich, or like her mom's like a designer or something like that or whatever. But she's looked at as being a commoner because she's not royalty. Even Diana wasn't a commoner. Her dad was like a earl or some shit like that or whatever. You know what I mean? And so it was seen as being okay for Charles to marry her or whatever. And that's also probably part of the reason why these people, the ones who are royal, they have to actually get permission from the queen to get engaged, because that probably lets the queen be like, nah, you can't marry him or you can't marry her, you know.
Mhm.
So to make sure they're protecting the line. I mean, shit, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, her husband, they're cousins.
I mean, they live in Alabama or
Like they're not like first cousins. I think they're like
Oh.
third cousins or something like that. But they're still related. You know what I'm
Kissing
saying?
cousins.
I don't have a big family, but I'm sure if if you had a third cousin, if J Lo was my third cousin, I probably would still be climbing there in DMs.
She is from the Bronx.
It's true. Good point.
She is from the Bronx. I was gonna say that's where you start off at. Hey, how about them Yankees? Never mind. Can't talk about the Yankees. Can't talk about the Yankees.
Or the Heat.
J Lo is my third cousin.
Actually, Rihanna might be related to me.
Yeah, that too.
My family's from Barbados, so that island's about the size of my backyard.
You, size of your backyard, huh? That's why folks can't buy lobster. Huh? Living good over there, huh, buddy?
Or crab legs, for that matter. What else? Anything else that we got to cover? Anything else that happened this week? Any bingeables? You guys watching anything?
Hey, if you allow me a moment, I'd like to go back real quick to the stimulus, and I just want to let the audience know that this COVID relief bill was passed with zero Republican support. And I bring that up only because there are some Republican politicians like Roger Wicker, senator from Mississippi, who are out there touting the benefits. Like, yo, look what we did. And it's like, no, we ain't do that. You know what I mean?
You ain't do nothing, bro.
And that's kind of what I was getting at when I said there's 50 people that claim to think like us, right?
Got you.
And I'm talking about the Democratic senators.
Gave
But I
it Jay-Z bar.
guarantee you it's about two to three of them in that motherfucker that, if you're talking about equal this and equal that, they might slide to the other side a little bit, no question.
Absolutely.
If not more. But yeah. I mean, so you said that happened because there was only 49 repubs there, right? Because one of them called out sick that day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Senator, normally it was going to pass anyway, but they would have needed the vice president Kamala Harris to
Cam.
break the tie. And Republican Senator Dan Sullivan, I don't even know what happened. He had a family emergency. He had to leave to go back to Alaska, and so because there were only 99 senators, there was 50 Dems, 49 Republicans. The Democrats passed it on a pure majority without having to have the vice president get involved.
Gotcha. Do you think the HBCU fad is a thing now in corporate places because the HBIC came from an HBCU?
You mean as far as them hiring HBCUs students,
No,
graduates, or you
no. I
mean
just
just
think
in general?
how it's become such like a
No, I don't. I don't because she's been a senator for a while. Of course, being vice president elevates you, but I mean, uh, while we like to think these corporate people are smart, they probably didn't do a lot of research into her, as many people didn't do a lot of research into her, and where she was educated from, and etc. I can't say that none of it hasn't come from that. Um,
right.
but I do believe largely that the efforts of the athletes have been dominating. Especially when you're talking about the NBA, because most of this stuff is driven from the NBA partnerships. It's not like a lot of these companies outside of the NBA partnerships are doing anything with HBCUs. Some have over the years and time, like Allstate, Russell, the different sports companies that bought into our leagues that were giving us jerseys and stuff like that. But I think the more recent stuff, especially as it pertains to the NBA, comes from guys like Chris Paul. You know, and some of the stuff culturally that we've been doing, with the movies and the actors and stuff like that. I think Vice President Harris is contributing to that, but I think a large part has been the efforts of other superstars and popular people.
I think that it'll help, and what I mean is that normally HBCUs, like the people who get the most shine who went to HBCUs are normally entertainers, right? People like DJ Envy and Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. Folks like that or whatever. But now you have somebody who went to an HBCU, who a lot of people who went to HBCUs, they have successful careers. They're doctors and lawyers and on, right? But this person became a district attorney, the attorney general for one of the biggest states in the country, in California, if not the biggest. I'm not sure, at least population wise. Um, Went on to be a U.S. senator and now is vice president. And so this could help to show people, um, um, that HBCUs do produce, quality students into the workforce. But what also would help them is, like EJ said, with athletes and things like that, because they, even though Harris is the vice president of the most powerful country in the world, she's not going to get as much shine as somebody who is an athlete. Not to mention that she's a number two. She's not a number one, right? So as much as she might be doing in the background, all the attention is really given to Joe. You know what I mean? Even though when they give speeches, Joe Biden does this a lot, and I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if he does it just because he felt some kind of way with Barack, because normally he would come out and he would just stand there, Barack would talk, and they would leave. He normally lets Kamala speak first. And even though she speaks at most of the public events that they do together, when it's covered by the media, you only see things from Joe's perspective. You know what I mean? And so with her being a number two, it's hard to see her having a huge impact. Now, if something were to happen to Biden and she assumed the presidency, or if she runs on her own and wins, then I think you're talking about a whole different ball game when you get to HBCUs. But I think for now, it'll have an impact, but I think that impact will be somewhat on the margins.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that was virtually what I felt. And the last time people politically really paid attention to HBCUs initially was during the Obama campaign trail, and Michelle, who I believe is a strong advocate for HBCUs, was on that role. And I just want to say VP made a great point. A lot of people one of the biggest knocks against HBCUs then and now was that they don't prepare us for life in the workforce because everybody at the school is black, but it's always the biggest misnomer when a large part of the faculty sometimes is white. And because we're at a black institution, I think that's the best place for you to get prepared to be in the corporate world because you have, experienced professors who've worked everywhere, and who better to tell you how to navigate racism in the corporate world than somebody who looks like you and knows how to do it. So I think Kamala being the vice president has just smacked that misnomer all around the world. Although she was already doing it anyway as a senator, and there've been tons of people that are from HBCUs that have already been doing it. The brother from South Carolina, VP, I can't think his name, the old guy, he went to South Carolina State. So
Jim Clyburn.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, I think to VP's point, which I was saying, I think it's good. It's good. It's good for us, but I don't think it's going to be the end all be all.
And also too, I think that one area that it could help in on the professional side of things is, and I don't have any information or statistics on this to know that it's not happening, but a lot of times, especially when you look at like the legal profession, like a lot of like HBCUs, they graduate shit tons of black doctors. You know what I mean? And it's something that doesn't get a lot of talk in this country, but a shit ton of black doctors went to HBCUs. They didn't go to fucking, Harvard Medical or Yale or wherever the fuck. They went to Howard and schools like that, Um, and so I wonder if, you see some of these people who run for office and they talk about how, oh, well, I was a clerk for this judge, or I clerked on the Supreme Court, and then I became a local prosecutor or a U.S. attorney or whatever, And I wonder if people at HBCUs are applying for those kind of like clerk positions with judges and things like that at the same rate, or getting them. I know they're not getting them at the same rate as their counterparts who went to a Yale or Princeton, et cetera, And so maybe having a person like Kamala Harris in the vice presidency, and you see what she's done throughout her career coming from an HBCU, that it will make some of those people in the old guard, the people who are the they're standing on the at the toll of the bridge. Maybe they'll start letting some of those people from HBCUs get into those types of positions and things like that.
Well, we've always had that example when it came to Brother Marshall. Thurgood Marshall went to Lincoln University, and then went on to move on. And shit, he got kicked out of Lincoln, wilding out. And then you had Marion Barry, Martin Luther King. I mean, we've had examples over time. But to your point, the second position in the highest office. But we've always had the examples. It's just, again, our community, the lack of information, the lack of promotion, and just the lack of understanding. And some of that too can be faulted of some of these universities, and depending on who's running it and how much they're into the community. Like Morgan and Coppin have actual schools in Baltimore City that were created and built to be a pipeline from elementary to middle to high school to those universities. And sometimes things fall along the wayside. But I agree, it definitely will help for this new age of potential students.
Mm-hmm.
I just want I want them to stream, the Howard Homecoming that they do at the White House for I just think that's going to be great. They're, because they're definitely going to do something there, and I can tell you what's going to be on the menu. I could tell you,
oh my God,
it's going to be, and it's going to be a bid whist table. It's going to be a spades table, some dominoes in the corner. Shit, Joe, go upstairs. We got this down here.
That's one of the things too, man. That's one of the things too. And shout out to my man Corey who's listening. That's one of the things too that COVID kind of robbed us of. Being able to kind of highlight that black excellence at the inauguration, because even though the Howard marching band was in the inaugural parade, but it wasn't the same due to COVID restrictions and things like that. They didn't have, like, normally after and on the night of the inauguration, they do the inaugural ball, and it's usually called the inaugural ball, but they have like 10, 12 of those things, and they have different themes, and so you would have been able to see, them have something, with, Howard or HBCUs, however they would have done it. You would have been able to kind of highlight and celebrate that black excellence, and you didn't really get to see that. Amanda Gorman doing the poem at the inauguration, she was awesome. The marching band at the limited inaugural parade, okay, that was cool. But we didn't really get a real taste of it or whatever because of COVID. So that's another thing that it stole from us.
Imagine the step routines that would have taken place at that ball. Like, it would have been crazy. Black Timberland boots all over. What you guys been watching? What, anything new? I'm still finishing up and re-going through The Sopranos. Nothing new there. Other than that, I haven't really had a chance to watch anything.
I saw on Netflix recently. Me and the girls watched. Damn, what the hell? Yesterday. With Jennifer Garner.
I saw that.
Yeah, Jennifer Garner's in it. It's actually pretty decent family film.
Hey, you know what, EJ? I thought you said yesterday, and I was about to say that movie's called Yesterday, by the way. I thought
no, not yesterday. Yeah, it's a good family film. I wouldn't watch it by myself typically. But I gotta.
Garner's in it, right?
Yeah. She's at that age now where she's playing somebody's middle-aged mom on a film. I'm like, damn. But I gotta eat my words just a tad.
Long time since Alias.
Yeah, I gotta eat my words just a tad. My guilty pleasure has been The Equalizer with Queen Latifah. The action part of it, I'm still not a fan so much, but the stories be getting me, and her acting. Dana can act. She been doing this since 90 something, so she been killing it. I can't even hold you. I look forward to those joints. But this week, Dana, Queen Latifah. I'm just playing old Dana today. You don't remember that line? Okay, never mind. But this week, Justice League comes out. The Snyder Cut comes out this Thursday, and then Friday, Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out. So,
look forward
for that.
Yeah, for that. For me, man, I still have a little bit of leftover PTSD from Coming to America, so I haven't been watching much. Yeah, I've been reading this week. Finished up my book that I was reading on investing. Yeah, that's kind of the actual book is actually called Invested by
where they be hustling at though. I put the cast on this a long time ago. All them bowling tournaments.
But yeah, so we've been I just been reading, man. I haven't really watched much. My wife watched that Disney joint Raya. She liked it. I haven't got a chance to check it out yet, but she liked
it. Fire Stick hasn't provided any links yet.
Allegedly.
Nah, whoever's out there stepping game up.
But yeah, speaking of that, man, I don't know. I know Steve got to get into his bingeables, but I understand that Netflix is going to be limiting the password sharing, man. What the fuck's going on with that? Like people ain't gonna be able to be on the family plan no more.
Yeah, no surprise there. They have to. I mean, you got to imagine, like, there's probably like a whole royal family out there that got one password. Especially with Markle. Shit, I guarantee you. All,
Oh my god.
where's she from? Oakland or Compton? It don't matter.
Yeah, I know she's from Cali. I don't know
It's at
from
least
where.
35 people out there in California that got the royal family's Netflix password because that's just what we do. Like, no matter how rich you are, you know, you gotta share it. I didn't hear that, but I would I would assume they do. Everyone else does it, right? You know, HBO and Disney and so on. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
limit it. But you have to, man. You have to.
Well,
To
they're talking about
monetize.
limiting it, not to like say like, oh, well, you only can have like 4 people use it. They're talking about limiting it to where it would only be able to be used in your home. So like only on
Oh,
3 TVs in your house.
yeah,
So
that's a bit much. I think
yeah,
they just need to advance their technology department and, maybe go by like MAC address on a device type of
yeah.
thing. And, because you'd say maybe 4 MAC addresses because maybe somebody has a computer at work that they use it on or something like that. Somebody.
And I just checked it out, Steve. She's from LA.
Yeah, yeah. So,
But yeah, what you been watching, man?
I watched. I do got to step back. I said I didn't watch anything. I watched the Biggie doc. Shout out to Biggie. This was anniversary of his death was March 9th. I actually watched the doc on March 8th. I guess it was into the 9th because I watched it after work late at night. Um, it was good, man. I thought they did pretty good. I am one like many others that feel like we have hundreds of Biggie docs, thousands of Biggie docs, and what more could you know? But I like this one because there was actual video of him from when he was younger. There was video of them being on tour. There was video of just it was good pieces. It wasn't just a bunch of people sitting in front of a camera saying, "Oh, Biggie was great. Oh, Biggie was great.
Mm.
Oh, he was a wordsmith. He was awesome." You know what I mean? You actually got more to it than that, like all the others. And you got his mom's piece. You got a lot from her, which was good to hear, and other family members and close friends. So this doc was actually pretty good, and it took me 2 starts because after the first one, I was like, I'm not watching another Biggie doc, and then I was like, I'm gonna go back to it, and I watched it. So definitely worth it, especially for somebody who has never heard "Ready to Die." They should probably go out there and watch it. There could be, you know, a testament to why Biggie is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, by volume of content out there.
Yeah. So my
But that was
man,
all I watched.
my boy, Corey, who you highlighted his comment a moment ago, Steve. If it wasn't for that brother, man, I probably would have never listened to any of that stuff from him, man. He's the one who turned me on to Jada. You know, we used to be
Oh
in the
yeah,
barracks.
you know how you feel about Jada.
We used to be in the barracks in Okinawa, Japan, man. And I'm in there with my trick daddy, and listening to some Luke and shit. And they like, dog, come on, bro. He turned me on. He turned me on to Kiss.
Switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. All right, man. I think that's all we got. We ran long, as usual.
Shocker.
The long-winded twins over there. Uh, you, you niggas got enough wind. Y'all got enough wind to power the whole goddamn country. I tell you. All right. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got for today. Anything else, we could probably slide it off until next week. Pause. And I will hand over the reins to one VP of a little bit of research to take us up out of here.
All right, everybody. As always, we definitely appreciate you guys listening and rocking with us, especially those of you who tuned in live on the cast. Um, you can find us on all your podcasting platforms at Castworthy, whether it's iTunes, Spreaker, Google Plus, the YouTube channel, uh, Spotify. If they got podcasts, we're pretty much there. Just search Castworthy. You can follow us on any of our social media at Castworthy. On Instagram, it's at Castworthy _ podcast. If you check us out on social media, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Let's grow this audience. Um, if you're going out, try to remain socially distanced. Please wear a mask. We're almost at the finish line here with COVID. You're running a marathon. When you see the finish line, you don't stop running. You got to go through the tape. So let's keep it going. If you got to go out, socially distance, wear a mask. I hope that you and your family, when you're eligible, that you will take the vaccine. I've talked about it on the podcast. I've taken the Pfizer vaccine. My wife has taken it. I have friends who've taken it. The vaccine is safe, and it's what's going to get us back to normalcy. So I hope that you'll take the vaccine when you are eligible, wherever you are in the country or around the world for that matter. Um, but yeah, again, as always, we definitely appreciate you guys for rocking with us, and we hope that you enjoy the content. Uh, we will see you on the next podcast. We thank you for listening. We love you. Peace.